Hey, everybody. I'm here with Philly Slimm, who is a father who has a little bit of experience with the family law court system. He is also a musician who sings about some of his experiences with the court system and with his family as a direct result. Philly, I appreciate you taking the time today. For those who don't or may not know who you are, go ahead and kind of give us a little bit of an introduction of who you are, kind of where you've been, and some of the things you've done to kind of give the audience an idea a little bit about you.
My name is Philly Slimm. Thank you for having me, by the way. My name is Philly Slimm. I'm a nationally recognized artist. I'm an advocate, business owner. I'm a father of two, but I'm a parent to none. I was drugged through the system like a lot of us. Started out in my music career about 13 years old, just kind of memorizing things. And as I grew up in hip hop and musically, sorry, excuse me, my music talent was always there. I just kept a passion for it with the entertainment side. Um, I'm from a family that my parents were both together. So I believe that marriage was like, I do till the end, till death do us part.
I get it. No, I gotta jump in here. You got a kind of a striking resemblance to Eminem a little bit, kind of the earlier days. I know you said some stuff about a little bit about Eminem and some of that. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was Eminem lookalike, and I traveled all around. I was in the Real Slim Shady video. Was also a lookalike at the Grammy Awards when I was 19 years old.
Nice.
I've done a lot of different things. I've been an extra on Seinfeld. But when I really started seeing my passion was there, just getting to see things for behind the scenes and appreciate those individuals and how much work it takes to go into this. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Just how many things are going. It just really inspired me. It was just, kind of one of those things. And then I was also an extra on The Hateful Eight with Quentin Tarantino.
Okay.
I've done a couple of the Fast and the Furious, and just being on the set was just really cool to see how it's all done. So it always intrigued me.
I'll tell you what, I really like The Hateful Eight because there were no heroes. I thought that was pretty awesome. What a fantastic movie. And I'll tell you, it's interesting how the Fast and the Furious movies are still as relevant today as they were when they first came out, because it's interesting because like when you watch the Fast and the Furious, it's interesting because in today's day and time, we don't necessarily identify with our flesh and blood when it comes to family. It's the family we create as opposed to just our flesh and blood by itself in this day and age. I mean, I think that's the subject for a kind of another video, but I think it's something that deserves its own, video to talk about it and kind of do kind of a deep dive with it. But with that said, talk to me a little bit about, your childhood. You said you had two parents, but there's like a little interesting twist there. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I grew up in Northeast Philadelphia, born and raised on the playgrounds where I spent most of my days. I'm just joking. But
fair enough.
Little Will Smith, but Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
There it is.
So I grew up in Northeast Philly. Both of my parents were together. My father had been married previously. So I had two brothers, David and Paul. And then my mother, she had been married previously twice and had my brother and my sister, Michael and Kimberly. And then when my parents got together, it was myself and my brother, David. And I kind of vaguely remember it didn't, how you have that epiphany in life where you finally want to know where. I think everybody has to hit that moment. And that was my moment at 26. And we'll get to that later. At 26, I just had to stop and meditate and just go back to anytime you need to know where you're headed, you have to know where you've been. Right. I mean, and so I wanted to really break I wanted to break that. And I wanted to find out, why did my father beat on my mom, or why did this happen, or why? And so I really just alone time for at least 5 years and just really meditated hard on it. And I at age 13, I didn't realize when my brothers David and Paul were coming over to visit us, I didn't realize that, and it wasn't explained to me that was my father's parenting time. And it was just kind of one of those things, it wasn't explained, don't touch that, it's hot. Don't touch the stove, it's hot. Well, why is it hot? Well, because I just got done cooking. And it just wasn't explained that, no, your brothers have to leave. This was your dad's parenting time. And yeah, I can understand not saying that now being a parent. Um, don't say that to a 6, 7, or 8 year old, right? But I was 13 years old, so it's not something that I couldn't comprehend at the time. And so not knowing that, and then over the years when it really made sense to me as to why, and as to why I was only getting to see my brothers on the weekend. So it was just,
Right.
it was crazy. I never understood why that was. Why now, out of, all the years we've been here, why are they just now coming around? I didn't realize that my father had been trying to find them for 4 years,
Right.
4 or 5 years, writing letters, trying to, we didn't have the platforms we have nowadays. And my dad probably could have tried harder, sure, but given what he had, it was one of those things. He had a narcissistic ex-wife, and there you go. It was like, your dad doesn't love you. Look, he started a new family. He doesn't care. Goodbye.
Right.
You don't need to see him. And my father passed away 7 years ago, and I still have yet to talk to my brother David and Paul. It's been over 25 years since I've seen them or spoken to them.
It's interesting because you seem to have a very unique childhood in that even though you had both parents in the home, your father was divorced, your mother had been at least divorced twice. And so you had to deal with fallout of those failed relationships. And of course, what you've just described is parental alienation, where your father was, looking for your brothers or half brothers and trying to maintain relationships with that, where as well as I do, because I know that you're involved in some of the father's rights movement. As well as I do that when you don't have a chance to parent your children full time, you permanently destroy those relationships. And oftentimes those relationships aren't recoverable. And you hit the nail on the head in that, we have, you have a smartphone sitting next to you. We have tablets, we've got computers, we've got internet, we've got all these options at our fingertips to be able to find each other. We've got ancestry.com, we've got DNA tests. A lot of this stuff they didn't have back when your father was your age, or, when he was at the age I was when I left my first wife. So the odds of a parent who had been alienated during the height of, or the beginning of the second wave feminist movement, I mean, that was the kiss of death. So yeah, those relationships were dead. And you hit the nail on the head where, these fathers, like yourself, like myself, like other fathers, they've been badmouthed by their exes. And so it's very difficult for us as men and as fathers to reconnect with our children when the children's own mother is kicking us under the bus. Now, when you got married, how old were you?
I was 24, I believe.
Okay. And how long?
23. I had my son at 23. So it was probably 22, 23.
How long were you with her? How long were you with her before you got married?
2 years. Okay.
So you were with her for 2 years. You had your son prior to the marriage, and then you went and got married. Is that a fair assessment?
No. We got married. We were together 3 years total. So it was 2 years. Then we got married, and then found out, a couple months afterwards that our son was going to be born.
Okay. So
after being married.
Okay. Did you guys conceive prior to the marriage or afterward? Or are you sure?
Prior.
Okay.
Prior.
Okay. Yeah. So, but you were planning on getting married anyway. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you went to the Grammys. You were an Eminem lookalike. You've done some traveling with your entertainment. I know we talked a little bit before the video about what led to the breakup, as far as like how you knew the breakup was going to happen. It sounds like, so talk to me about the New York trip and kind of what your ex said to you, how you responded. And then, we'll kind of take that slowly. We'll kind of, we'll go slowly step by step through that, and we'll kind of dissect that a little bit. So you went to New York, and then what happened?
I was signed by an underground entertainment company by the name of Platinum Entertainment. And I had an account through JetBlue. They had flown me back and forth between Denver and here. And how I met them was a friend of a friend of a friend happened to know Fat Joe. Next thing you know, I'm getting linked in with Fat Farm and just a bunch of different other things. So I'm thinking to me, this is awesome, And it was my best friend who happened to work with the gentleman. And dad flew out, and everything was going great. So I had flown out for the third or fourth. I believe it was like the third or fourth time out to New York, and all of a sudden I get a phone call from my mother, and she says, hey, I think something's up between you and Carrie. And I said, okay. And she goes, something's kind of off. And so I said, all right, I'll call her. So I call her, and she says, well, I don't want to be with you anymore. And this is it. I'm done. So I just found out that her mother had just passed away too. And losing a parent, I know what that feels like now. At the time, I didn't. But the way she had threatened it, and she says, well, you're never going to see your children again. You're never going to see your son again. And that's when I said, well, I'm going to kill you. Said some things out of anger because I was upset, and I, never been a criminal, been a law-abiding citizen all my life. All I'm trying to do is just,
right,
provide for my family as a man would do. Right.
So you're traveling to provide for your family.
Yes.
She had a relative pass away. She was distraught over the relative. Sure. You guys got, she said she was going to leave. It sounded like you wanted to stay married. You were pleading with her, and then she got upset, and then eventually started telling you weren't going to see your kid again, and then you made a threat against her. Is that a fair recollection of everything?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And
so
then
now
she had.
Well, let's hold on. Hold on. No. You're good. So let me ask you this. We're going to jump ahead a little bit. So now you finish your trip. Obviously, you're emotionally distraught. You're upset. And you get back from New York, you get back to Denver where you were at the time. And talk to me about the events that where she reached out to you and talked to you about picking up your child and that whole thing.
So I had landed back at DIA. I took an emergency flight when I found out that her mother had passed and that we were kind of going through this. Took an emergency flight back. I got here, got to DIA, got back to our apartment at the time in Douglas County. Got back there, just threw everything down, and she goes, "Hey, just come pick up Makai. He's getting restless. It's time for him to hit the sack." And I said, "Okay, I'm on my way."
Before we move on, let me make something clear for everybody who's watching. So at this point, your relationship was, to your knowledge, when you took off for New York, your relationship was intact. You had no idea that had considered she leaving at all. Okay, and when you came home, she left the family home and was staying elsewhere.
No, she was not.
Where were you? She was still at home?
Still at the family home. Yeah, she was still at the family home. So, yeah. So I drive down to pick up my son.
Where did you go? So when you got back off the plane, where did you stay? Were you staying with friends, or did you have another place, or what was going on?
No, I was staying with her. We were still married.
Okay, yeah. So you shared a house, or you shared an apartment, or whatever. So so go ahead, go on. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we were still married. I didn't know anything. She was just like, I don't want to be with you anymore. I guess that's what she was telling my parents, because they had just taken her out to dinner prior to her mother passing away. So all this kind of happened within a week. So by the time I got back, I unloaded my suitcases, dropped them on the floor, and I took off to go pick up my son. And when I got down there, hold
on. Before you jump into that, let me ask you this. So you were at home. Was she not there?
Correct. She was at her place of employment.
Okay, so she said, "Come to my place of employment to pick up the kid."
Yes. Sorry. Okay. When you and I spoke about that prior, I left that out. She was the head coach of the University of Denver for gymnastics, actually.
Okay. So well, there's a lot of advantages. There's a lot of advantages to dating a woman like that. Just saying.
Yes. Right. Especially gymnastics women, right?
There it is. Right. Almost like yoga. But anyway, go on.
Like I said to you, like most men, you fall into the Bermuda Triangle and the Charlotte's Web.
Yep.
And that was one of those things. I was thinking with the wrong head. Fuck, we all make mistakes, but it wasn't a mistake. I got my son out of it. He's beautiful. He's healthy, and I'm happy for him. Unfortunately, it is
what it is right now. So you go to her job to pick up the kid, and tell me what happens.
So I go to the job, pick up the kid. She knew I was coming. She told me to come. Little did I know that there was officers waiting for me. I pulled up to the stop sign. I thought she was bringing him out. She didn't. I said, "Forget it. I'm leaving." I circled around the block. I came back. All of a sudden, as I hit University in Asbury, at the stop sign right there's a little four-way stop. I hit that. Next thing you know, nightstick comes in, shatters my glass window. Cops are dragging me out of the car. What are you doing stalking your ex-wife? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I have no idea what you're talking about. And he's like, yeah, you're so-and-so, right? And I go, yes, sir. And he's like, and I'm like, what the hell is going on, right? Had no idea. Little did I know, find out, years later, I was able to hear the 911 call. And that's what it was, that her estranged husband has been stalking her and she's afraid. So she made that call when I didn't share this with you earlier. She made that call actually at 8:58. So all of this was predetermined. She knew I was on the flight because my flight didn't land until 10:30 at DIA. 30 minutes from DIA, got home, dropped my stuff. I was literally at DU by 11:45 at night,
Okay.
PM.
Right.
So she knew, she had already made the call when she found out that I was getting on the plane after I had threatened her that I was going to kill her. You're not going to take my son away from me. You know what I mean? Obviously.
Right. Well, and I think that, I want to address a couple things here. Number one, when you threaten to take a man's child from him, that's when that paternal instinct kicks in and says, no, you're not.
Well, we always talk about, you don't want to mess with the mother bear. Well, mess with somebody like me, or mess with a father that actually cares and is working 16 hours a day to try to provide and do everything that he can. And then you're going to turn around and tell me and take away the only thing that I value in life. Because if you think about it, when you get married, you're supposed to be your soulmate, right? No, not necessarily. This is your flesh and blood. That woman, her and I, we had this thing.
Right.
This is ours together.
Right.
Together.
Right. And so your first notification that something was amiss, obviously, was with the police officer nightsticking your window and dragging you out of the car. Now, What's interesting about that, obviously, you made a statement in the heat of the moment. You took accountability for it. You said, yeah, I did say I was going to do this to her. They arrested you. They convicted you. You went to jail. Now, talk to me about what she did right when you were going to get out of jail, and talk to me about kind of how that turned from, I think you said it was 29 days to close to 5 years. Talk to me about that process a bit.
So I was arrested in Denver City. Denver City held me for 29 days. I didn't find out until I had to hire an attorney. I've been a law-abiding citizen, never even been to jail. So my mother, I'm talking to her across on some, plexiglass on the phone, of course. And I'm like, Mom, I got to get out of here. I don't know what's going on. And, of course, my father was playing the macho role, and he's going, oh, let him sit in there. He did it to himself, Nobody knew, right? So I'm in Denver City for 29 and a half days, of course. Then they transferred me over to Denver County. Then I went from Denver County. I found out when we hired an attorney that they had a hold on me in Douglas County, which is where I lived. So I went from Denver City to Denver County to Douglas County. Now when I'm serving my time in Douglas County, violation of probation, even though they didn't put me on probation because I was still technically in custody, is considered a revocation. So you were just now arrested again, technically, by them coming to pick you up. So they had 29 and a half days to come and get me. If they didn't, then I was able to go free.
Question for you. This was post-conviction, or was this pre-conviction?
Pre.
Okay, so when you got arrested,
I wasn't even convicted of anything yet.
Okay.
Nothing.
Okay, so when you did your 20. Okay, so you get arrested. They hold you for 29 days, and you're still not convicted. This isn't like you pled guilty and you're doing jail time at that point. That's not what happened. I mean, obviously you did it at some point, but it sounds to me like you did 29 and a half days while you were waiting for trial, waiting for conviction, waiting for everything to go through. When your 29 days were up, you were getting ready to get out. Then they held you again. And then they started playing hot potato with you to do everything they could to prevent you from getting out of custody. And you ended up spending, if I remember correctly from our conversation, you spent somewhere around 5 or 6 years behind bars as a result of this kind of games. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair assessment, but that's kind of the drastic end to it. It was 5 or 6 years total throughout the whole process. So after I had gotten to Douglas County, I did about a week in Douglas County, and then I find out as I'm getting ready to get bonded out, right? Get bonded out, all of a sudden another case is charged against me for the exact same thing in a neighboring county. So I went from Douglas County. Now I have a hold in Jefferson, Arapahoe County.
So it's not even
Arapahoe County.
So it's not even a new charge.
Going.
It's not even a new charge. It was the original charge.
It's the exact same charge. All she did was go. Yeah. All she did was go to each county, and just file the exact same thing, which is out of the jurisdiction because she doesn't even live in Arapahoe. She doesn't live in Jefferson. So I just kept going. So I'm getting to the part where you and I spoke earlier. So after Douglas, I went to Douglas to Arapahoe. Then I find out Arapahoe, I'm about to get out of there. The attorney calls, says, well, she went over to Jefferson County now. Now he's got to go to Jefferson. And then that had stopped. So then once I was able to finally get bonded out, to actually get a conviction to say, yes, I did say the things that I did, hold myself accountable. Let's just get this done and over with. I had to go back because now I just revocated all 4 of those counties. So that's how they do it. So, well, you technically didn't get out and you had police contact and we had to pick you up on another hold. So
okay, so let me ask you this. Right. Right. They were basically playing whack-a-mole with you. Now, my question for you is this. Obviously, you only got the single conviction for the single incident. Did the other charges ever get dropped, or what ended up happening with those?
Yes. No, they didn't necessarily get dropped. I just had to pay like a restitution fine, and that was it. But I didn't get a domestic violence for the same charge because a DV is an umbrella, whether you take a phone or whatever. I mean, domestic violence nowadays in this country is a household name. If you don't like your relationship, scream domestic violence, and that's all you got to do, and so that's what they're doing. And the cops, they don't know anything about it. Mayor Wellington Webb had changed the bill here in 2009 that if the cops get called, whether it's from a neighbor or someone here in Denver, somebody's got to go to jail, and 9 times out of 10 it's the male.
Of course, that's all Duluth stuff, and this is something that a lot of viewers on my channel were well aware of. I actually did a full video on Duluth. I've done multiple interviews on Duluth. So I mean, that's absolutely. Now, the thing that frustrates me though is that she contacted multiple law enforcement agencies for this, accused you of the same crime over and over and over again to keep you incarcerated maliciously, I might add, and she was never held accountable for it.
No, she was not.
Nobody ever charged her for filing false reports or for malicious prosecution or for anything that she should have probably been held accountable for in her efforts to alienate you from your children. Because you're still, I mean, this made you get supervised visits, right?
Correct. So after I went almost 1,000 days without seeing my son, and then finally after it was almost 3 years before I finally got supervised visitation, and that was probably the worst thing. After coming out, you go one or two ways, you know what I mean? So It's either 50-50. You come out of a situation like that, and I was down, depressed, and I was ready to snap on anybody, upset. Yeah, I'm getting thrown in jail. Can't see my son for something that I said over a phone.
In the heat of the moment. No history, no criminal history, never been arrested before, never gone to jail before. Yeah, and I totally get that. And that's the sad part about it is that you were a law-abiding citizen. And, a study came out probably about a month and a half ago, I don't know if you've read it, that shows that men are discriminated more in the United States than women are. And we see this all the time. And the sad part about it is your story is not unique. It's not. I mean, your story is absolutely horrific, just like my story was. And they did everything they could to keep you in the system, to keep contact with you, to make sure you had a criminal record and to keep you from your child. 1,000 days for anybody who's not paying attention is close to 3 years. So his relationship with his child at this point is dead and buried, except for whatever he's able to reconcile, hopefully when that child gets a lot older. And again, we don't even go into the part where children need their father. and he's not able, even though he wants to participate in his child's life, he's not able to participate in any way. In fact, that kind of transitions me to something that happened recently. You obviously wanted to participate in your child's school. You went to your child's school to get records. Talk to me about what happened there.
Yeah, this was November 2017. My fiance that I'm with right now, her and I were talking, and like I said, we've known each other 24 years, and we're sitting in the hot tub. I'll never forget this. And she says, "You need to. I think what we need to do, honey, is this, and this." And I said, "But you don't understand what it's like because it's not your life, right?" A lot of people kind of you listen to other individuals that you surround yourself with, but those individuals don't have to suffer the consequences in which you do. And so it's all fun and games to people that everybody's got an answer for you, right? Until you're like, okay, well, I'll give it a try. So I didn't have at the time, I didn't have my son's birth certificate or his social security card. So I was
okay.
like,
Before, let me ask you this.
Right, I want to go do that.
Right.
And
Now,
I'm allowed to go to the school to get his transcripts.
Right. So the parenting plan gives you permission to go to the school.
Correct.
And plus, you're a father. You've got your Troxel v. Granville, United States Supreme Court rights to parent your children on top of that. Obviously, and for those people who don't know, back in the 90s, there was a case out of Washington State that went to the United States Supreme Court. It was Troxel v. Granville that stated that parents have a 14th Amendment right to parent their children before anybody else. Okay, that's first and foremost. So, and then on top of that, the idea of a parenting plan is that the parenting plan is not supposed to take parental rights from a parent. It's just supposed to separate those responsibilities and those opportunities. So he had a parenting plan that said, yeah, go ahead and go to school, get records, do what you want to do. So he talks to his girlfriend in the hot tub. They say, yeah, let's go get these records. I'm missing the birth certificate. I'm missing social security cards. I need to have these things as a responsible father. All right. I apologize for interrupting you. Continue on.
No, you're okay. And I appreciate you bringing that up. I mean, they need to be educated on it because that's what it really takes at the end of the day is educating yourself. And I told my fiance, I said, honey, Catherine, I don't know, man. I don't know. I said, you've heard about my nightmare for the last 12 years, and now you and I are starting to, because we've always been best friends. She says, well, let's just go do it. And I said, okay, let's go. I need that like you said, as a responsible father. And I just kind of swept it under the rug. So I decided to go to his school. I know where he's going right now. At that very moment, I was at 16 hours a month parenting time, which is what I've been at for the last 8 years. So I wasn't a parent. I was a play date. And then, so I find that out, and I find out he's in counseling, and him and I were talking. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to go to his school, and I want to see, I kind of want to just feel them out, and I want to see how he's actually doing. I tried to co-parent with his stepdad, and I haven't spoken to his mother in over 12 years. We tried the talking parents. So I was like, screw it. We're just going to go ahead and go to his school. So I go to the school one day, and they actually knew that I was coming. I get there. The assistant principal was telling me some things, and she says, you're not even on the list. And I recorded it. I have it with me today. I recorded everything. The birth certificate that they have on file, I don't even know what it is, because the one I gave her was horizontal, and the one that they gave me back in the transcript was vertical. And so there was just so many things that were going on that racked my mind. So I ended up leaving there. I had no idea that my ex-wife
give me a second here.
At the school. I had no idea. That's where the warrant comes in.
Right. Well, let me ask you this. Let me jump in here real quick. All right. Sure. So because you said some things that kind of keyed me in, and this is something that guys need to know as well. This is something that happens. I actually went through something similar in my divorce case. This is the type of thing that's happened to other men as well. And I think this is a teachable moment. You go to the school, you get records, and you find out that the records, the birth certificates and everything else are fraudulent documents. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about fraudulent documents. That's a felony. So
I didn't know that at the time.
Right.
At the time, but I started looking over the papers because they don't just hand them right over, right? Right. They want to make sure you're the father and this, that, and the other thing. So if I didn't have the social security card and the birth certificate with me stating that I'm on the birth certificate, I am the child's father, they had no recollection of me at all. I wasn't even on there as a second party, second household, emergency contact. they're like, who are you and where have you been?
Right. So that's my point. So for anybody listening to this video or watching this video, you guys need to understand this. You're like, fathers, it's not just in family court, right? It's not the false allegations of DV or, people going to prison for 5 years for mean words. It's not that. It's not just that. It's the entire fraud from start to finish, from the time that a man who loves his woman, who wants to be married to her and wants to have a family to her, to the time that he gets falsely accused of something, to the time where he gets falsely put in jail. It was funny, when I was an MRA, one of the things we used to say was, as an MRA, your rite of passage, that you've done your rite of passage when you've been falsely jailed for something. And so, because it happens so often. It happens to every man who goes through these types of contested things where there's false allegations. And now you have this woman and people supporting her submitting false documentation to the school. So they didn't even know who this man was. They didn't even know that Philly Slimm was the father. They didn't even know this man existed until he showed up, and they're like, what the hell? So of course they're going to be reticent about it. Right.
Not to interrupt you, DDJ, but that was the reason for the warrant. Was right. I ended up getting a text from his stepdad saying, if you wanted the records, why didn't you just ask for them? That's literally what he sent me. And then when the Douglas County detective had called me, the sheriff, Deputy Burrito, and I want to make sure I send that out to him because I called him back 5 times and recorded it. And I said, yeah, I called back to talk to you because I knew what they were going to do. I knew that if they weren't able to get a hold of me, that they were going to put a warrant out for my arrest to see if I did go to the school. So I made sure to keep calling and keep calling and keep calling. And I didn't just call the regular number. I called the 911 number so that it's recorded. And I'm recording it. So the minute she answered, the dispatcher, I go, hi, I'm so-and-so, and I'm trying to talk to Deputy Burrito. This is my 5th time calling. He called me and left a message saying an altercation had taken place, and I flipped the script on him. DDJ, I said, I want to know if my son's okay. He's in Douglas County. A sheriff calls me. I want to know if my son's okay. Right. I'm screaming. I'm yelling at this dispatcher. I'm going, I don't know if the kid got kidnapped out of school. I don't know what's going on. Tell me what's going on here. Right. So I'm getting real vocal with him now.
Absolutely.
After the 5th call. Now I'm upset because I'm kind of sorry to get loud.
You're fine.
I'm kind of flipping it on him now. Now I'm flipping it back on them.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to come up with I'm creating the false narrative.
Well, and
I don't know if it's false. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, let me jump in here, guys. For the guys who don't understand where he's going, what he's doing is this. When a sheriff calls you about your child, usually you think your child's been kidnapped or your child's been killed or something bad has happened. And so Philly Slimm did the exact correct thing. He calls up 911 and he's like, oh my gosh, I'm this parent and I love my kid. The cops called me. What do I do? And what he's doing is he is creating the evidence to protect himself so that he understands where things are going. So if something goes sideways down the road where they continue to try to ramrod bullshit toward him, he now has a record of this. And now he can say, look, I was a concerned parent. I was this, I was that. And this way, if they're trying to set him up, he's complete, like he said, he completely flipped the script. It is an absolute perfect technique to do. It's something I encourage every man to do in the same type of situation because it also gets a response.
Well, it's also, DDJ, like what I like to help when I counsel fathers and parents, I always tell them, I said, study a misdirection course. It's the best thing because that's what they do to you. And I always tell them, I said, act very calmly when you're up there in court and say to them, I must be, the bottom third, I didn't graduate. I'm not as intelligent as you, Your Honor. Stroke them off a little bit and then tell them and go, you know what? How is that in the best interest of my child? And just keep saying that because the best way to piss off a narcissist is to keep asking questions. That's how you piss off a liar, right?
That's
keep
right.
asking them questions. So, Your Honor, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm just stupid, but how's that in the best interest of my child? Right. Well, sir, it. Well, I guess I'm still stupid. I'm not comprehending. How is that in the best interest of my child? How is me being incarcerated and not able to attend things and be there how is that in the best interest? So you're telling me that I'm now reduced down. I've been taking care of my son since he was born. And now all of a sudden, you portray a false narrative from the defendant, and next thing you know, the plaintiff, my bad. And next thing you know, you're going, how did we get to this? And that
Right.
was after so many, and I've been doing this over a decade.
Right.
So it's just one of those things. Always get in there. And for me, 3 hots and a cot was nothing, DDJ. You know what I mean? It was like,
Right.
I already been there. I'm just going to stand up here. And I do want to say this. I was about to get overnights with my son, and he was 6 years old. So after all of the incarcerations, in and out of jail, I was about to get overnights, right? The judge says, you've been fighting for over 5 years now, and you're telling me Judge Angela Arkin. Judge Angela Arkin. Thank you, Combs. So Judge Angela Arkin says to me, you've been fighting all this long, Mr. Frazier. I don't understand why. And she goes, why don't you want overnights? And I raised both of my hands up, and I said, you know what? I don't want overnights. I'm done. And she goes, can I ask why? And I said, well, I'm so glad that you did, Miss Arkin, Judge Arkin. I said, because my first overnight visit with my son, this narcissistic woman over here, his mother, will stick her pinky up our own child's rectum. And then we will be back in here in about 90 days stating that he's been complaining about his rectum ever since he came back from his father's. So I stopped right there, DDJ, when I started realizing and paying attention, not just on the emotional side. I always,
you had to separate yourself emotionally.
I have to separate myself. I always tell people that I am not living my journey right now. I need to be putting my chess pieces and getting this. This is not me, right? So I'm trying to get articulate, and I'm studying, and I'm educating myself, and I know her next move. And the reason why we were in there for that was I was holding her in contempt for not allowing me to have the overnights and see my child at 16 hours a month. So she had brought up that he is still in danger, and now he's wetting the bed. So now she's blaming me for him wetting the bed at 16 hours a month. And I go,
even though she's abusing him.
Yeah. How many days are in a month? 30 days, 31 days on some, right? How many days are in a month? So I only get my son 16 hours. That's 36 hours. That's a day and a half. So you're telling me I caused him to piss his bed out of 28 days I haven't seen him out of the month. How about this, Your Honor? It's in my genetics. I was a bedwetter until I was 17 years old. It has nothing to do with labeling. It has nothing to do with any of these things she's saying. It's in my genetic. My father wet the bed. I wet the bed till I was 17. I'm not proud of it, but this is what it was. I had a disorder. What do you want me to do? He wets the bed. So I wet the bed. He did. My father did. What's the big deal? So that's when I realized that it was being turned back on me in the court. That's when I said, I'm done. So before the actual, I was right in the midst of the silver bullet, right in the midst of it. But before she could end it, where I was ready to pull the trigger, I ended it right there and said, I don't want overnights anymore. Said, I'm done. I don't want overnights anymore, because next came the false allegations of molestation. And I knew it was coming.
Right. And that's for everybody. There. Yeah. So for everybody, I've talked about this a lot before, and I think it's important to repeat here. So first and foremost, what happens is you get the false allegations, or you get the out of context allegations. Sometimes those result in guilty convictions. Other times they just result in supervised visits. What ends up happening there is, and then if the father gets his footing and he decides that, okay, I want to be a good parent, I want to be a good man, I want to improve myself, then the allegations keep coming. The goal is to destroy the man. The goal is to go scorched earth on the man. They don't stop until the man is completely destroyed. That's why this man that you're looking at right now did 6 years on and off in jail, because this woman did not want him to parent his own child. I want you to think about that. I want you to think about it.
DDJ3, and I have to mention this because I know a lot of the viewers out there are going through it, and it's not just the 6. Look at what it does to you. Like, they made me this way. I had 3 attempts on suicide. I have PTSD. I was depressed for a lot of years, but I bounced back. We all can bounce back, and this is just a moment. It's educating yourself to a certain extent to what you're comfortable with. And some of these people, are like, I educate myself to realize we're up against a monster that we can't beat single-handedly.
Well, and I think that
Only
the other
we
side,
can.
I think the other side of it is, and this is something that I think is an important takeaway for everybody watching this video, and that is that, it this destroys men. You were destroyed. I mean, I was homeless. I went through a bunch of that stuff. You have these thoughts in your head. You go through these things, and not all men survive. The rate of suicide when it comes to men who are destroyed by their ex-wives, the risk of suicide raises by 40%. There are men with no history of mental health issues at all, and they go through a situation like what you've gone through or like what I've gone through, and they come out the other end and they are completely destroyed. And so for you to be able to come forward, I mean, it takes a lot of courage to come on camera and to talk about these things and to share your experiences with other men, because people need to understand that, look, you can come out of the other side of the gauntlet. You can come out stronger. You can come out. It doesn't matter what your situation is, whether, like you said before, no disrespect, but it's like you said, you were a bedwetter. You had all these other issues. You had 3 suicide attempts. You were incarcerated. I mean, you had everything wrong that could have happened to you. And yet here you are. You're still making music. You're still rapping. And your music is raw. It's from the heart. It's raw. It has not only intellectual meaning, but it has emotional meaning. And, you're doing your best to improve your life each and every day. And so for anybody who hasn't, for anybody who doesn't know who Philly Slimm is, check him out on YouTube. He's got a YouTube channel. He's been making music for a long time, mostly underground, but he's got a lot of good music. He's got a lot of collaborations with other artists. I think that it's a great thing. And the other thing I'd say is this, is that, the situation that he described in this video is not, it's not the type
uncommon
and not uncommon at all. Thank you.
It
happens all the time.
More and more. It's just reaching out to individuals like yourself and myself and educating yourself and realizing that that it's happening to so many men across the country, across the globe.
Right. Well, talk to me about the work you do with men. Obviously, you're a men's rights activist. Talk to me about kind of how you help men and kind of, what you're doing today to help protect men and to educate them.
Well, I have been, thank you for asking. And like I said, DJ, I appreciate you having me on. It really means a lot. Right now, I have an organization. It's an issue committee called Faulty Colorado, which is Fathers Amending Unjust Laws Through You. 5 years ago, I made a prediction that it's not just going to happen to men, that more and more women are going to come out, and it's going to be happening to women as well, because they just want this, right? They don't care the gender, the government, the court system. They just want your money. And I knew eventually, I feel eventually, DDJ, sometime in the next 5 to 10 more years, you're going to see that feminist organizations are going to start coming together with men to realize that they're coming after you too. And it's happening to lesbian couples and gay couples right now. So that's kind of what I'm focusing on, because the whole pride thing here in Colorado is just huge. And I love it. Hey, man, freedom, be happy. If that's what makes you happy, be happy. But educate yourself as well. So that's my organization, Faulty Colorado, which is Fathers Amending Unjust Laws Through You. I'm part of the Fathers' Rights Movement. I'm part of a lot of different other movements. And then one of my other organizations is FAM, right here on my shirt, which is Fathers Against Malicious Mothers. There's no reason to be malicious. Just because you and I we didn't get along doesn't mean that I'm a bad parent, right? So that's kind of what I teach. I try to find somebody like Tony Robbins always inspired me, and I watched him all growing up. It was just one of those inspirational things, and it's just find that person that isn't going to steer you wrong. And like my entertainment company is No Excuses Entertainment. So it's like, stop making excuses. And that's what I try not to talk to individuals that have just kind of went through this like a year or two, because they're so new to it that they don't know their civil rights. They don't know what laws that they have. And 9 times out of 10, they just want to consume your energy and they don't implement anything. Right.
Well, they're still emotionally raw. I mean, they are.
Yeah. They are. But that's the thing is, it's really hard for me to talk to somebody who's like, a year into it, because I'm going, man, you're not even past the suicide threshold yet. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I want to explain to them that there is help here, and I don't have a problem talking to you, but we can't do it all for you, right? We can just try to educate. You take what I'm saying right now, my physical being, my presence, take what I'm saying and interpret it however you feel works best for you, right?
Exactly.
Because it may not be right for your situation, but I'll tell you what. I had to walk away from my son. I had to walk away from my daughter. I haven't seen my daughter in 8 years. But people say, why did you walk away? Because the closer I got, the further I was pushing him away. And right now, the suicide rate in teens is astronomical with the Tide Pod swallowing and all of this. And these children are so impressionable that they'll do anything to make it famous. Let's be honest. And my son's going to be 13 years old. And the last thing that I want from him is to have any of those thoughts. So if that means I have to be the man and suffer and back away, so it secures him from not having those thoughts, because, when he goes back home during my 16 hours a month, he's, you know what I'm saying? He's getting drilled.
Right.
Well, what'd you do? Are you smiling? Why are you smiling? Well, did you have fun with your dad? No, you can't take. That's the kind of things that are happening. And then alienated households.
Right. And then every time you go and you exercise your residential time, she's dragging you to court for something, or she's making up another false allegation. So sometimes when it comes for some men, and this is something that I've talked to men about as well, is I've said, look, sometimes you got to walk away in order to keep the peace, because the more you guys are in court, everybody suffers. The children suffer, both parents suffer, everybody else suffers. And the only people who profit is the courts themselves and the attorneys. So sometimes you got to take the hit in order to get, it's like I say, sometimes you got to take 5 steps back to get 10 steps forward.
And that's what I believe. And we have a platform right now, right, Didi? We have a platform. I always tell all my fathers, all my parents, I believe in co-parenting. Get in these videos, get out there, contact your legislators. Yeah, of course, our votes don't matter. It's bought by publication and airtime and all the other shit, right? Yeah, your vote really doesn't matter. But guess what? When there's 10 million of us at the Capitol, are they going to shut us up then? Right? You know what I mean? When we're all coming together and uniting and going, there's a problem here. And that's why, in European countries, they'll shut it all down right now and walk off the ports and go, no, you don't run. You don't own us. We own you. You're supposed to do what's right for the people. Right. Not the other way around. So when you start doing what's wrong for the people, then we're going to stop what we're doing to help. You know what I mean? Could you imagine if there was no more, import export business on the coast, they just walked off. You wouldn't get your clothes. You wouldn't get your fruits. You wouldn't get anything. Well, all the truckers just said, forget it.
Yeah, all the manosphere. We've talked about this a lot. All these women talk about, what would happen if all the women walked off the job? Honestly, nothing. What would happen if all the men would walk off the job? Here's what happens with all the men who walk off the job. Society shuts the fuck down. That's what happens. So, but with that in mind, we're coming up on 48, almost 50 minutes. I think it's been a great interview. Obviously, I think I want to have a couple more interviews with you. We can kind of get into some other things. You've got a lot of information to share. It's been a great conversation. Philly Slimm,
Thank you.
Go ahead. This is a part where you get to shill all your information for people to find you on YouTube, find your organizations. Let everybody know how to get a hold of you.
Philly_Slimm at yahoo.com is my personal email. Please contact me there. Any one of the team members. You got Michael Combs, you got Laura Thompson, you got Fathers Against Malicious Mothers. I have Prisoner of Family Court. Hold on, let me turn around so you can see it. That's on the back. Prisoner of Family Court. That's me. We also have Beat Dad Dead, the Father's Rights Movement. There's so many other organizations out there. Make sure you get ready to check out Cash and Prizes. With director Michael Combs as well. Just brilliant documentaries that are coming out. Just keep surrounding yourself, guys, with the people that are constantly blowing your flame and keeping it going and not trying to put it out. Reach out to me, Philly Slimm Music on Facebook. I got a Twitter. I have YouTube. There's so much Instagram. I got Snapchat. Everything's Philly Slimm. Just Google it. The answers are there, but it takes you to do the research behind it. and take that step forward. And DDJ, thank you so much, and it means a lot. And don't forget, this is always my closing line. What we do today, guys, affects our tomorrow. So keep continuing to plant those seeds. And DDJ, it's been a blessing. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, man. You take care. And guys, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care.